How do I get approved for a home loan? All right, let's talk about the pre-approval process. For starters, I want to clarify what a pre-approval even is. And to get there, I want to bring in the conversation about a pre-qual or a pre-qualification, because they're very different things, especially in the eyes of a listing agent. So a pre-qualification is when a buyer or potential buyer goes to a website with a lender and they type in their information. Here's how much money I make, here's how much debts I have, here's what purchase price I have, here's how much money I have. They type in all of their information. And then they don't provide any documentation, and there's no credit check to be had. And based on the numbers that the borrower put into the system, you can get what's called a pre-qualification letter that essentially states if everything you said is true, then you would be able to move forward. However, in a listing agent's eyes, that will never fly. So a pre-approval really is important for you to obtain in order to move forward on making an offer on a house and actually having a chance of getting it accepted. So what is a pre-approval? A pre-approval means that you have submitted an application to a loan officer or a lender. And once you have done that, then you must submit some documentation. You have to have your credit ran and looked through. And then the lender, loan officer, will go through your application, and based on what they have verified and reviewed, will issue you a pre-approval letter saying, yes, what I have seen means they qualify for the plan in place, whatever the pre-approval letter says. So that's what a pre-approval is. So now let's talk about what's needed. Now, this is going to vary from person to person, heavily due to with your specific situation in terms of your income and how you get paid. So if you are self-employed, that's going to be slightly different than if you are a W-2 employee. So if you are a W-2 employee, then what we're going to need is we're going to need the last 30 days of pay stubs. We're going to need 60 days of your asset statement, so whatever bank accounts has funds in it that you plan to use for the transaction, copy of your ID, and the last 2 years of W-2s. If you're self-employed, then instead of the W-2s, we will need 2 years of tax returns. Any additional documentation might be required based on how you completed the application. There's multiple factors when something else might come up. One example would be child support. Whether you pay child support or receive child support, there'll be some documentation needed in order for us to move forward. Now, what about the credit pull? I want to talk about this, right? This seems to be a real sensitive topic. So with credit pull, there's two options. There's a soft credit pull and there's a hard credit pull. So a soft credit pull does no impact to your credit. And it is a great option for getting the conversation started and just seeing where you're at and being able to have real numbers for us to work with. A hard credit pull is needed in order to obtain an official pre-approval and absolutely needed in order to buy a home and close on it. A hard pull does impact your credit, but not by much. This is something I hear a lot is when people express a concern with the impact of the credit by having the credit pull, but I'm here to tell you it minimally impacts, and the impact is temporary. The other great thing is that when you are a home buyer or a potential home buyer, you actually get a grace period to shop lenders. So what that means is you have anywhere between 14 to 45 days where you can have multiple loan officers pulling your credit for the purpose of a mortgage, and it will count as one inquiry on your credit. So if you're somebody who's worried about that and plans to shop around, just know you can. Just do it in a short time frame so that you have very minimal impact on your credit. How long does it take to get pre-approved? So from the time you start your application to the time you get your pre-approval letter in hand heavily depends on the borrower and how quickly they can get us the documents that is needed. But a typical turn time is within the same day or within 24 hours. A more complex situation could be 1 to 3 days. So it's a pretty quick turnaround. And I'll tell you, if you're a motivated buyer with all your stuff ready to go, and especially if you have a house picked out and time is of the essence, I myself, and I know lots of other loan officers, are willing to jump through hoops and work after hours in order to get you what you need so that you don't miss out on the house that you're wanting to buy. The next thing I want to talk about is next steps. So what happens after you get your pre-approval? So you've done your application, you've submitted your documents, hopefully you've had a loan consultation with your loan officer to talk about not only what you qualify for, but what that means in terms of your cash to close and your monthly payment. Because I think we can all agree that just because you qualify for it doesn't mean you necessarily should or want to spend it. So having that loan consultation, I think, is really important before you go out and start shopping for homes. So after you've done that, you have your pre-approval letter, you've had your loan consultation, it's time to go shopping. So I will connect with your real estate agent, letting them know that we've had that conversation, letting them know what you're pre-approved for, but also what you want to invest in, what you want to spend, so that we're all on the same page. Once you go find a house with your real estate agent and you're ready to make an offer, your agent will include the pre-approval letter with your offer, which shows the listing agent and the seller that you are ready to make that offer and that you've already been fully vetted. And this is where that pre-qualification mentioned in the beginning is not going to be helpful. If you submit an offer with a pre-qual, the likelihood of a seller agreeing to your offer is very low. So make sure you work with a loan officer that only issues pre-approvals. Now, if you're wondering if you're ready to get into the home buying process or you just want to review your specific scenario, I would love to help you out. Click on the link in my bio and you can take a really short quiz. It takes less than 3 minutes. There's no credit impact. There's no commitment. There's no cost, but it gets the conversation started to see how close you are to home ownership.